we need to realize that we've institutionalized a system that started in 1837. And I'm grateful to the Northwest Ordinance of 1787, the historians, keep me honest more or less here, in which the territory, west of Pennsylvania, north of the Ohio River, all the way to the Mississippi, and that's Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, came into the new United States of America. And in that ordinance, it specified that in every township, land would be, the government didn't have any money, but they had federal lands. And federal land in every township would be provided to be sold to build a one-room country school. And that's why I went to two-room, I've lived on Orchard View Farm, went to Orchard View School. Jim Robinette was in a poor community. They had a one-room Peach Grove school up on the East Belt Line. But you think of that commitment. I always marvel at the early folks. All of higher education initially was private. And so all the old universities. The founding institution, the University of Michigan, was a private school that then became a public university. So public higher education really didn't become manifest until 1863. For the creation of the land grant system under President Lincoln. Why? He needed officers for the Union Army. And ROTC was a motivating factor in the improvement of what had been started in Congress in the previous administration. So public higher education is a fairly new phenomenon, but we've institutionalized then, beginning in 1837, as public elementary education in this new region became an idea in the original colonies and was adopted in Massachusetts. And a guy named Horace Mann set up the school year and the school curriculum. School year starts when potatoes are dug and ends when it's time to plant corn. And we still operate that way in Grand Rapids, and most of you are out digging potatoes in the fall. No, it's an archaic system. The school year is wrong. The school day is wrong for the contemporary family. And on we could go. So I'm optimistic about the future of this country. We've got some tough problems. And I think we all pray that we've elected a statesman who will bring the country together and will bring the world together differently. It's an awesome agenda. Just think of getting up in the morning and worrying about everything, everything. And picking the right women and men to carry on the leadership, because President Obama is a charismatic leader, and we hope that he can pick the right people to deal with energy and jobs and nuclear proliferation and so forth. So optimism, I prescribe it. Good.
You were talking, and it was really, I saw a great line of parallel, because as I was driving in today, I was thinking, what does the Hauenstein Center mean to me? I come to this event, once a month, and I said, well, what am I getting out of this? And there's some immediate benefits. And one of the most particularly salient things that came to mind was the idea of perspectives. The fact that we have all these perspectives in the room, and we all don't necessarily have a united agenda, but we all have some place, we have goals that we want to be at, and we can talk to other people and demonstrate those goals with them. But my question is, and you talked about a liberal education, sort of, when you were in your undergrad.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
You sample the greatness of the university, and how important is it? And can you reflect on a time when perspectives were really important in making a decision? And you talked about President Obama making, really good decisions on picking his staff and making sure that those perspectives are there. Can you reflect on a time when those perspectives were really important to your decision making?
Well, I think you always have to have, as you recognize that we have an opportunity here to take steps. We usually can't move a mile. And so you have to have, however, a vision of what you hope will ultimately be accomplished. And in the realities of the moment, resources, political processes, different perspectives, people come together, and the problem is to get consensus to move ahead, that you have to be realistic in terms of how far you can move. But you always need to know where it is that ultimately you want to be. And you know, I think of the different opportunities that you always have to sort of move forward, whether it's with your local church, your Rotary Club, your professional association. All of these, you'll be moving into multiple leadership roles. And you begin by becoming engaged. And you need to have an idea of where this profession ought to go. What's the ultimate goal you envision for health care in this country? It's certainly something different than we have at the moment. But how do we move from where we are with the fragmentation of the health professions? How do we move forward, and what steps can be taken? So I'm not sure I'm helpful, but it's always important to know what's the vision you have in mind, and you want to share with others to help them see how what we can do now can help accomplish that ultimately. It's the unending challenge, I think, of the leader of looking ahead. And one of the greatest dangers in philanthropy, in my judgment, in my role, and one of the great problems, I think, in politics and in a lot of other walks of life, it's very easy to become disconnected from the reality of life for most people. Now just think of what we've enjoyed this noon. And I suppose 80% of the total people in the world today, for lunch, cooked it in a pot over an open fire. And the differential is untenable over time. And how do we, as Americans, envision a differing role? First, in maybe our region of the world, how do we deal with the realities of immigration from Mexico? The river didn't make any difference. Is a fence going to solve the problem? How do we deal with that kind of reality? So that those things have to be a part of the leader's mind, and how do we make those differential steps toward what ultimately we think should be the change situation? Yes?
Ralph, or Russ, could you give us a couple examples of leaders that you have worked with, and tell just a brief story about what you thought the leadership attributes were for those people?
Well, leadership attributes for those people. Yeah, one of the great leaders that I've had experience of being in philanthropy was a guy named Bob Payton. Bob had a career first in higher education, had been a university president. Bob Payton then had been ambassador to one of the small countries in Western Africa. Bob Payton then was with Exxon as their corporate grant maker, and then moved to Indiana University to set up what is the premier now world-class Center on Philanthropy in a university setting. And he was a man who was eternally optimistic. Everything that life dealt him, he coped with effectively. He lost 2 sons in Africa. And he and Polly survived that.